So next important stage, once the expatriate are recruited, once the expatriate are selected, obviously the next program is the training. The training plays a significant role, especially in the context of international human resource management. So there are quite a few challenges here. It's not just about training about the product, the process, but you have to also orient the employees to work together, because the employees who are working here are not from the same cultural background, ethnic background. They are from a diverse cultural backgrounds and ethnicity, and therefore specific training is also needed to ensure that the employees are on the same page despite of their cultural and ethnical differences. They have to work together as a cohesive unit. So special training is also required from the viewpoint of addressing the cultural issues. But apart from that special training, what exactly happens in training, what companies do in training, and how does training impact the overall performance of an individual and overall performance of the organization, is something also which needs to be understood. So, how would you define training? This is the most simplified and a meaningful definition which I have discovered. So, training is defined as planned efforts, which gives us an indication that training is not random, right? Training has some sort of a rationality, a thought process behind it. So, therefore, training is a planned effort designed to facilitate the acquisition of relevant skills, knowledge, and attitude by organizational members. So, what exactly are you trying to do with the training program is that you're trying to focus on three areas which are extremely important for the employee to perform well in the organization. And these three areas includes, first, the knowledge of the domain in which the employee would be working, the knowledge of the country in which the employee would be working, right? Knowledge of the local city in which the employee is working, right? Cultural knowledge, all this covers under your knowledge component. So then comes your skills. So skills which are required to perform the job, skills which are required to work with people from different cultural background. So that those skills are imparted, and attitude. So attitude building exercises are also undertaken in the training programs to ensure that the employee have the right mindset, because at the end of the day it's the attitude which actually helps the employee to survive and to perform well. So attitude also plays an important role. Right attitude is required to sustain, to grow, and to survive in the business setup. So these are the areas which is focused in the training program. Now, what are the other benefits of training program? Of course, training program has a host of benefits, and this is something. This is from a general point of view, right? When you train employees, obviously they will do lesser mistakes. They're more confident of what they are doing, and this will result in better quality of work. And with the help of training, you can also boost the productivity. So the number of units what they produce for a specific duration, the amount of work what they do for a given period of time would be on a higher side, because the employee are well versed with the steps, with the procedures of what they are doing on their job. This will also help in cost reduction, because when the productivity is high, when the employees are well trained, there will not be any sort of wastages, and this wastages once minimized, it will improve the cost. Employer very employees are very confident. Well trained employees are very confident of what they are doing. So obviously, when the confidence is on the higher side, the morale is also quite high. And when you have well trained employees, you don't need more supervisors and managers to check whether what the employees are doing is right or wrong, right? You don't need frequent supervision. So that is also another benefit. At times, what happens, the more supervisors you have, it will also increase the cost, and employees will also be under the fear that somebody is monitoring me. And when somebody is constantly monitoring you, and that is where sometimes that constant monitoring might also excuse me, leads you to do more mistake because you're over conscious. So that's why a good training program can avoid all this. When you're confident, you don't need supervision. When you're doing work without any flaws, you don't require any supervision. And lesser learning period, which means after you get proper training, You will learn very quickly. You don't have to spend a very long time in understanding the process, in understanding the nature of the job, right? Even your probationary period, which is the initial period of stay in your company, based on which your future course of action would be decided, would be very good, because during your probationary period you would have performed well because of the good training period, right? And personal growth. So as an individual, the training would have had severe impact on your attitude, your skills would have been enhanced, your knowledge would be increased. So obviously you as an individual, you also personally grow. And the accidents can also be avoided when employer are properly trained, when they are trained on safety protocols, when they are trained on the do's and don'ts of doing various things within the premises of the organization. So there is obviously no chances of accidents, and it also brings loyalty, because as an employee you will realize that the company is investing heavily in training you, in imparting necessary skills. So you know that the company has invested a lot of money on you, and you also become loyal to the company because continuously the company is trying to improve your performance. As an individual, there is a great amount of learning what you are going through in the company, so you become loyal employee. So these are some of the generic benefits of the training program. But let's also discuss in the context of international human resource management, by keeping international jobs in mind. On what basis do you design an effective training program? Because that's the crux. You need to be very clear what is that you want employees to learn, what is that you want employees to train, on what areas you want to train the employees. So those things have to be very clear and predefined and very well defined also. So how would you design a training program? How do you design a training program depends on a lot of factors. So that is what we are about to discuss now. What are the things to be considered before designing a training program? The first thing what you have to do is identify the type of global assignment. So what kind of a job assignment is what you have to understand, because the nature of job assignment can be technical, right? It can be functional, or it can be developmental, or it can be strategic. So what is your role in the organization? Am I hiring a software engineer? If I'm hiring a software engineer, then it's a technical role. Am I hiring a team manager? If I'm hiring a team manager or a department manager, let's say I'm hiring a HR manager or a finance manager, then it becomes a functional role. But if I'm hiring somebody who is the vice president of sales, vice president of marketing, then it becomes a developmental role. If I'm hiring somebody who's responsible for the entire future direction of the company itself, let's say a chief executive officer, then it becomes a strategic role. And each type of role needs a different set of training. Since you people are more aligned to educational institutions, so let me also give you a perspective from the viewpoint of educational institution. Assuming that St. Joseph's College is starting an organization in Middle East, so technical role would be more of the role what teachers play. So let's say the first category here is teachers. The second category here is functional, right? So when we say functional, so we have different functions. So let's say we have teaching, non-teaching, administrative. These are different functions, right? So if you're hiring the office head, if you're hiring a student counselor, right, all these are functional, different functions. Developmental. So who's responsible for the developmental role? The answer is the deans, the directors, the HODs. These people are responsible for the developmental role. And when we say strategic, we are thinking about the principal. The principal is responsible for taking the organization to a new direction, right? To ensure the performance is on a all-time high. Principal plays an important role. So first you need to understand who are you trying, what kind of a role is this, because depending on the role you have to design your training program. If you're hiring a software engineer, you should know what kind of a training needs to be given to a software engineer. If you're hiring a functional head like a HR manager, you should know what is the kind of training that should be given to a HR manager. If you're hiring a CEO position, then you know what kind of training is required for a CEO. So each level needs a different set of skills, different domain expertise, right? So first you need to understand what is the role for which you're hiring for, I mean training for, right? That's crucial. So that is important here. uh, then comes the determination of training needs. So should the training be really given? Is training really necessary? Because training comes at a cost. In training, employee is not doing anything, he's not contributing anything towards the productivity of the company. He's just sitting in the training room and learning something and going home. So absolutely from his side, there is zero contribution. He's not contributing anything, but he's getting salary, right? And he's not doing anything. So in that way, it's a huge cost. So you just can't needlessly spend so much of hours of time on training the employees. You need to see, if I train the employee, what is the benefit I'm going to get? How training the employees will benefit the organization? In what way training will increase the productivity of the organization? And in what way training will personally help individuals to perform well and to achieve their targets? All these things needs to be analyzed, for which you have to do an analysis of your organization. So do you have a sufficient budget for training program? So what are your organizational objectives? Does your organization believes in empowering and training the employees? So in case if your organization does not believes in the philosophy of extensive training itself, and most importantly your organization does not have a budget in place, then you can't do training, right? You have to just make an employee sit next to an experienced employee. He will only learn by looking at him. So that is also known as on job training. So you don't have to spend too much of money on that, right? So it all depends on organizational analysis. You have to first study your organization and see whether your organization requirements demands investment in training programs or not. Then comes the analysis of the individual whom you're hiring, right? So that is also important. First you analyze the organization, then you analyze the person whom you are hiring. So let's say you're hiring a candidate with 25 years of experience. He's a veteran. He knows in and out of the process. He has expert technical knowledge. Why you want to train him? Who already has 25 years of experience and expertise. But what if most of the expatriates, most of the foreign employees whom you're hiring are freshers? In that case, definitely you need training. But somebody who's has expert level of knowledge and considerable amount of experience, you might not spend a lot of money on training. Then comes the assignment analysis. Okay, so first you're understanding what are your organizational needs. Second, you're understanding the profile of the employees whom you're hiring. Third, you're trying to understand the nature of the job, right? What is the kind of assignment what you're giving? If the assignment what you're giving to employee is quite complex, it's quite difficult to perform that job itself, then you need definitely an extensive training. And that is what happens in most of the military organization. The kind of training what they get completely transforms them as an individual, right? So that's kind of a magical training that happens there. So because the nature of job itself is so tough, right? Patrolling, fighting with enemies, using weapons, uh, it will all have psychological impact. You should be mentally very strong, right? Similarly, let's say I'm sending you to space, I'm sending you to Mars. So do you think an individual just like that you can pick up from the road and send him to Mars without any kind of an extensive training? What are the kind of issues what you encounter in space on new planet? So the job itself is very tough. So when the job itself is tough, even the best of the best astronaut needs again a training, right? So you might select best pool of astronauts to send them on Mars, but for them also Mars is completely a new setup because they have also never been to that uh, place before. So the conditions might be extreme. So therefore, when the job itself is tough in nature, then irrespective of the work experience, you should train the employees. And what are your training goals? Is it for short term? Is it for long term? That also needs to be analyzed. And once you're done with this, finally you have to come up with a training program. So what kind of a training you want to give? On the job, off the job, classroom? You've all studied this in HRM, different methods of training. So appropriate method of training has to be selected depending on the job for which you're training the employee for.
And once you develop a training program, developing a training program in itself is a great challenge because you have to know what exactly you want to impart, right? So, and once you identify what kind of skill and what kind of knowledge needs to be imparted, you should also choose an appropriate method. So, which method is most suitable for imparting a particular skill, a particular knowledge component, right? Imagine I want you have joined a five-star restaurant after completing your bachelor's of hotel management. You have done your bachelor's of hotel management in India, and you have been recruited for an international restaurant in Dubai, and therefore uh, I'm one of the trainers who want to give you some idea about Emirati cuisine, right? So I want to give you some idea about how Emirati cuisine is, what are the key ingredients, uh, so what are the culinary delights of UAE. So I want to give you some training because it's not just the foreign tourists who visit Dubai, but even you have to take care of the taste of the localites. As a restaurant, you need to cater to the needs of both. So therefore, you have a good amount of understanding about international food, but your knowledge about Emirati food is something which is quite weak. So in order to train you on Emirati food, what kind of training should I give you? So mere by training you in the classroom, will you learn how to prepare Emirati food? Will you learn their cuisine? The answer is no. Classroom instructions are good, but what is more important than classroom instruction is that I have to also train you. I have to take you to kitchen and make you to do it. That is also important. So I need to have a combination of all the methods, right? So that is extremely important. So that's where as a trainer, it's very important to understand that what kind of a skill you want to impart and what is the best way to impart that skill, whether it is off the job, on the job, and which method of training should I use it to impart that skill. So that is something which you have to design in your training program. And finally, you have to do an evaluation. So you have to see whether the training program which was given, whether its short-term goals and long-term goals have been met or not. In case even after training the employees, there is no improvement in the performance of the employees. Employees are doing a lot of mistakes, there are a lot of errors, which it gives you an indication that something has gone wrong with your training program. Or in case if only one or two employees are having problem, the others are doing exceptionally well, it means there is something wrong with those employees, and those employees can be counseled and figure out what exactly is wrong with them, so that if there is a necessity, you can retrain them, right? So that's how the entire training process works. Now, this is the idea which on which the training has to be designed. Now, apart from this, one of the important component of training which is extremely important, especially for the expatriates, is the cross cultural training, because expatriates are new to the environment. They have not worked in the country where they are going to work. So, in that context, for them, it's a new perspective. And therefore, in order to ensure that they are culturally well aligned with the country where they would be working, it becomes extremely important to impart cross cultural training, also known as CCT. So, in cross cultural training, what is the focus on? Obviously, the focus on is to ensure that the employee behaves more like a localite. The employee gels with the local people and he's having a good perspective of the local culture, local norms. So, that's the objective behind imparting cross cultural training. So, in cross cultural training, there are four components which you have to focus on. The first one is called didactic training general. So, what happens in this didactic training general is that the expatriates are given some sort of a classroom driven sessions and introduced to the foreign culture. So let's say some new teacher has come from France who wants to teach here at St. Joseph's College. So we have done some sort of a faculty exchange program. So let's say I've been sent to France to teach students there, and one faculty has come from France to teach you people, first MCOM students here at St. Joseph's College. So obviously we can't put the teacher directly into action and send it to your class. So that would not be efficient, effective. So therefore, first, the faculty who's coming all the way from France to teach you people in India at St. Joseph's College, that faculty needs to be familiarized with Indian context, for which we are giving general training. So what happens in general training? It's more of a briefing. So an individual will brief the employees. Okay, you go to India, this is how the culture in India is. This is how big India is. They have so many states. They have so many zones. They have so many languages. They have so many cultures. These many channels. These many newspapers. This is their food. It all happens in the form of a lecture, seminar, or probably some sort of a group discussion, or some videos can be played, or also some kind of a reading material can be given. So employee can read and try to understand the perspective of Indian culture, right? So this is the first stage. First stage is to give you a bird's view of the culture, not very specific in general in detail, but a complete idea, right? Overall idea, right? So it's like me teaching you about, I want to teach you about planet Earth, but I don't start with planet Earth, but I rather start with Big Bang, right? So that's how it is. I'm not getting into specifics in the first level of training itself, but I just want to give you an overall picture about India first. What happens next in the next stage? The next stage is called cultural or culture specific. The first stage was general training. The second one is called culture specific. So in this culture specific, the employee is trained on a particular culture, probably with whom the employee would be working. So that particular culture needs to be taught a little in detail, right? Obviously, any country, even though you might say that as a one country, but within that country itself, there are diverse cultures, right? Entire America does not have one culture. Entire Saudi Arabia does not have one culture. So there are cultural differences within the country also. And India is an epitome of diversity in culture, right? So let's say this faculty whom I'm referring to in my example, who's coming from France all the way to teach you. First, I've given this faculty a complete briefing about Indian culture, India as a country. So a lot of general information was shared. The next thing is I want to be a little more specific about South India, little more in detail about South Indian culture. So this is where culture specific training is given, right? And how it is given culture specific training? Again, it can be given in the form of some briefing, orientation, case studies can be discussed, a lot of videos can be played, right? And these are some of the ways of imparting culture specific training. Then once you have given the employee training about South India and a little more insights about Bangalore, where this employee would be working, the next step is to give more of an experiential training, because all this while it was more of lectures and videos within the classroom, within the four walls. But now you want to expose this employee and make him a little more practical. So in order to make the training little more practical, you need to give a better exposure, for which you can give some sort of a practical exercises, workshops, simulations, and also more genuine concepts such as look see visits, which means now I will be asking employee who's coming to India here to teach you people to behave more like a localite, for which practical exercises, workshop, mock sessions, right? These are given. And also to give you a better perspective, we can also have a visit, which means this employee, he will not directly come to St. Joseph College and start teaching you, but he will come for a visit, which means he will stay in Bangalore as a part of training first for a week or 2 weeks, and then he will go back to France just to get an understanding, because all this while the training was given in France about India, about Karnataka, about South India, about Bangalore, but now he has come to Bangalore and he has stayed here for a few weeks to get a perspective. So that is called experiential training. And the last stage of cross-cultural training program is called attribution training. In attribution training, you have to think like a localite, act like a localite. So you have to behave like a localite. So which, it's little challenging, but it takes time. It does not happen overnight, but you should be in a position to behave like that. So a series of intercultural short episodes. In this episodes, encounters between members of different cultures are used to practice interaction with new culture. So probably I will make this gentleman who's coming from uh, France to teach you to gel with few faculties of St. Joseph's College. Straight away, I will not send him to your class, but first he will work in the department. He will spend some time in Commerce Department. He will spend some time with the members of Commerce Department. And once all this four is done, general training, culture specific training, experiential training, attribution training, finally he will come to your class. So when he comes to your class, he's better prepared to handle you, and you can't bully him also because by now he knows what Indian students would be like. So that's the overall picture, what we are trying to uh, depict in this so-called cross-cultural training. And cross-cultural training is extremely important, especially in the context of international human resource management. And a lot of problems can be rectified if the cross-cultural training is uh, exceptionally executed. You can avoid expatriate failures because you just push an expatriate into your new culture and he has no understanding of that new culture. Definitely, he will feel alone. He will not be comfortable. He will not be able to gel with other people and he will fail. He will come back. The entire foreign assignment will fail. So that should not happen. So in order to avoid that, you need to have an exceptional cross-cultural training program.